He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
And we are back. Listen, I'm actually excited. I know I say I'm kind of excited about every guest. It's possible sometimes I'm bullshitting. Sometimes I am anyway, but most of the time, no. Like I'd say 90% of the time, no bullshit. I'm excited. It's interesting stuff. But it's particularly interesting today. We got Ron O'Neill. Now, your company's called
AI Intelligence Solutions.
AI Intelligence Solutions. And you do research as well as run a company. You do research into AI.
That's pretty much most of my job is doing research because AI is exponentially growing so fast every single day. And then the other part is educating the public, educating real estate professionals out there about how to use and implement artificial intelligence beyond property descriptions, beyond email responses.
So how'd you get into it? Tell us how that you went from how you started and how AI captured you.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a nerd. Okay. That's number one. So a colleague of mine back in 2000, at the start of COVID, had given me a call and from Los Angeles, and he says, "Hey, Ron, are you still a tech nerd?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm still involved with everything." He says, "Well, there's a small company called OpenAI down here in California."
Small company, OpenAI.
Yeah. It was small back then, right? And it was he said it was originally funded by Elon Musk, but Elon Musk had some differences with the executive team, and he left. And he says, "Well, right now they're at the kind of the beta stage. It was called the AI Playground." He says, "If you're interested, you can probably get access to it." And so I said, "Well, direct me where I need to go." He says, "Because they're looking for people in finance, education, media, entertainment, and one of the categories was real estate." And so after about 2 to 3 months, got access to it. And what ended up happening was, I was going in, playing around with it, testing it out, and personally, it sucked. It was really bad. It would hallucinate.
Sorry, it was really bad.
Well, back in
2000.
2020.
2020.
And,
back in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole thing is that when we were testing it, when I was testing it out, it would hallucinate all the time, right? And
so, just for the sake of the audience, hallucination is. It's a completely false result.
Exactly.
It's just made up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so as we moved into 2021, I would start to use it I was testing it on social media. I said, well, what I want you to do is I want you to create captions to target downsizers or first-time home buyers. And it would do a great job. It would produce a paragraph now versus a sentence from a year ago. But in the middle of the paragraph would be a hashtag or an exclamation mark just randomly out there, right? But then when we moved into the first 2 quarters of 2022, I was able to start creating my newsletters with it, right? So what I would do is I go in and say, well, what I want you to do is I want you to create a 700-word newsletter targeting downsizers. So the first 500 words, beautiful, spot on. The last 200 words, it would start talking about how much it loves chocolate ice cream. So it would go off on these tangents. But as we went through the summer of 2022, I just saw it getting better and better on the text outputs. And I started to see more and more uses with it for real estate. And then basically in the fall of 2022, this was an interesting time because a few of us were talking about where AI was going to go and what OpenAI was going to do with this technology. Now, you have to think about this. We thought they were going to go and sell it to the Pentagon or to IBM or Salesforce, whatever. But on November 30th, 2022, this is when everything changed. Got a call from my colleague from Los Angeles and said, "Hey, Ron, heads up. OpenAI," he says, "you won't believe this. OpenAI has released this ChatGPT 3.5 system to the world for free, and they open source that." Now, I want to explain what open source is. So basically, any company in the world can take that coding and start to use that coding in different forms or fashion. And right at that moment, I knew that there was going to be issues, but because AI can be very dangerous, but also be incredibly exciting. But the whole thing is that's when I started my company, AI Intelligence Solutions. And ever since then, my core values of the company is going around, educating people, doing the research, and understanding the goods and the bad of this technology.
Great. Oh, well, that's really interesting. The speed of progress is kind of amazing. It really is. So you thought they'd sell it to Salesforce or something as a license?
Yeah, well, we just speculated, right?
Okay,
we didn't have any prior knowledge to that. So we just thought that this technology was going to be too big for society as a whole.
Well, Salesforce is using it, right?
Yes, actually, what's interesting about Salesforce is they have basically started up Agentforce, and that's basically building
Agentforce.
Yeah, so they've basically taken all their research and development money from Salesforce and brought it right over to Agentforce, right? And the whole thing is that what is an agent? Well, an agent is basically an AI employee for you. And so that's what they're really working on. And there's a lot of other companies that are doing that as well, is basically instead of having 10 assistants, you can have basically 3 or 4 AI agents that can work for you and do tasks for you, those remedial tasks that you don't want to do in real estate.
Wow. Okay. So if I know Salesforce as well as I do, I can only assume that sometime in the next 12 months, there'll be a big announcement that your former CRM programs that you spent $1 jillion on will all stop working at some point in 2026, and you need to pay a whole new license fee to get onto to Salesforce Agent. Okay?
I know where you're going with this, but what's
you have to accept that I'm right.
Yes.
He is the worst human on earth. Okay, he just relentlessly rips people off endlessly. You don't have to agree, but we both know it's true.
So, and here's another thing: is that because since we got onto the topic of CRMs, and I know real estate agents, brokers out there, brokerage, everybody asks me when I get off the stage, which CRM is using AI, and what's important to understand is that we're still in the development phase, and there's a lot of CRMs out there that are absolutely amazing and have implemented AI into their systems. But the CRMs that we have today are going to completely change, because the whole thing is that they're, for the most part, most of the CRMs are standalone systems. But what's going to happen, and I know you have been in contact with AI voice companies, right?
Yeah, we're fascinated by voice AI.
So what's going to happen is the CRMs are going to be attached to voice assistant AI agents that are voice assistants that will make your calls. They will also take your inbound calls. And the whole thing is there's still regulations on that through the CRTC and all the other Privacy Act and all the other regulatory bodies. But imagine this. Let's say, for example, they take that inbound call and the client wants to make an appointment with you tomorrow. It's going to be connected to the calendar as well. It's also going to be connected to your email system as well. So the whole thing is that a lot of these CRM systems are not going to be a standalone system. It's going to be multifaceted and do a lot of the jobs that you don't want to do.
So at the end of the day, every CRM right now is some kind of data management. It's data management that allows you to spit out a message, if you want to. But you're right. The addition of voice means you can communicate with your clients in a completely, it's not you, it's the CRM. CRM can, as you said, take over so many more tasks of how you want to work with your clients in a much more user-friendly way. And because at the end of the day, everybody's tired of seeing a goddamn newsletter, right? Like fuck your newsletter, okay? Like, I don't want your newsletter anymore. I mean, I don't even read your newsletter. I just see it and I click it and delete it, okay? It's a little harder to do that with somebody who's like texting you like they're your friend, okay? Or phoning you like they're your buddy. I mean, it's a whole different level.
It is. And I know a lot of you out there, they're listening right now. The whole thing is you have to take a look at the AI voice has come along a way in the last 18 months. Like, the whole thing is...
It's gone crazy in 6 months. I mean, the strides it's made in 6 months is off the charts.
It is. And you know what's interesting? Because the whole thing is that there's almost zero latency now. So when you go to ask it a question, it's responding a second later, right? And the whole thing is that it has personality, it has the intonation.
It's got a sense of humor for the love of Jesus, okay? Like, it's incredible. It's just shockingly good. So you're right. That is, that's a big step.
It is. It is
a big step.
And the whole thing is that it's going to make our jobs so much easier in the real estate field, because it's going to do the jobs that we don't want to do at the end of the day, right? And what that also means to us is that one of the key things is that we're trapped behind our smartphones. We're trapped behind our computers. The whole goal of us building our businesses out there is being in front of clients or finding new clients for our sphere. And that's so important for us.
Well, in the mortgage business, you never meet clients.
Yeah.
So and there's most of finance today is based on no face-to-face meetings.
Yeah.
Like I know real estate's different. It has to be. I mean, you're taking people around, showing them properties.
Yeah.
Okay. Although that might change too eventually.
It might, yes.
But we could spend a lot of time talking about how eventually AI turns into Skynet and we're all gone, or AI, just accidentally takes over the world one day and all those bad things. And we could talk about all the wonderful things it could help us with. But really, if I'm in the mortgage business and the bank and work with banks and work with real estate lending, one of the things I think about all the time in housing and real estate and mortgages is jobs.
Yes.
I think about jobs because jobs are the foundation of a mortgage. People say, wait a minute, Ron. No, the foundation of a mortgage is the bank being able to lend you the money. I mean, that's the foundation. Yeah, but the only reason the bank can lend you the money is you have a job.
Yes.
Well, what about if you just have lots of assets, Ron? Well, the truth is you better have a lot because the bank insists on big interest-related income because they don't even count. They don't actually count stock sales. Like you'd be a stock trader and the bank says, actually, no, we don't believe in any of your income because it can go to zero 1 year.
Yes.
So we don't care. It's all about, like I'm telling you folks, it's 98% of all bank mortgage underwriting is what employment income did you have last year? So we got to talk about jobs.
Yes. Very important.
Because it's to my mind, very, very big. So let's talk about vulnerable jobs and less vulnerable jobs. So a lot of stuff comes to mind. I think a lot of us have heard the story of the radiologist, even though I think it's a great story.
Yeah.
Okay?
From Jeffrey Hinton, who's the original one, who's the godfather of AI, brought that up about 8 years ago.
8 years ago, because all that a radiologist actually does is look for anomalies, right?
Exactly.
Is that oversimplification, but it's pretty good. Okay. And AI can find the anomalies faster and more accurately.
Way more accurate than humans. Okay. Yeah. And we've seen that in so many different studies. And AI is part of the radiology now, but it's going to get just more and more prevalent because instead of finding the cancer at stage 4, AI can now identify certain cancers at stage 1, which makes treatment, diagnosis and treatment way better.
Of course.
Right?
Absolutely. 100%. So your point to that was that we'll still have radiologists.
Yes.
But we won't have as many.
And so as we were talking about this earlier, this is a big thing. It's unemployment as a result of AI is going to be huge. And it's hard to, there's certain areas that we can point our fingers at on where it's going to happen first. And we're starting to see it with tech. We started to see it with Microsoft already. But what's also something that we have to take a look at is the silent unhiring. And, we have a lot of graduates that are coming through school that jobs at the other end will be down by 60, 70% or 80%. So instead of hiring 10 people, they're only hiring 3 people, right, for those positions. And that's what's critical. And that's why I'm speaking with communicating with the education minister about this, is that we're potentially putting kids through education right now. At the end, they're going to have a $50,000 debt, but no job. And when we take a look at youth unemployment, we're looking at the teen levels. They're the highest level right now for unemployment rate, right?
Oh, head and shoulders higher. 100%.
So this is one of the things is that we have to prepare our colleges and universities on how to prep these graduates coming out on how to utilize AI in their field, right?
So I guess if we roll back to our radiologist analogy.
Yeah.
So if you've gone through med school and you're choosing your specialty, if you're in the radiology specialty already, you may be in trouble. But no one will be allowed to choose the radiology specialty because we'll go from 10 radiologists down to 3. But we don't want to fire them all, okay? No. Because first of all, that's hard.
Yes.
There's going to be pushback all along the lines. So we'll probably just let them retire out or switch to something else.
Yeah.
But the truth is, if you just started your first year of radiology specialty, you need to get out. Yeah. Like you just need to get out. And that applies to a lot of jobs, right?
Correct.
Well, that's the point you're making. That if your job is to come out of university with a degree in business analysis, you are fucked. That's ultimately the truth of it all. Like there is going to be no business analyst in another year and a half.
Well, no.
You like to shade it so it doesn't sound so bad. But is not the very truthful fact that anything that really revolves around spreadsheets, data,
yeah,
ain't going to last.
Yeah.
That's not going to be around.
If you're doing your job in front of a computer all day long, or most of your job, and it's remedial tasks, you're going to be in trouble, right? At the end of the day.
Serious trouble.
Yeah, because AI is just going to take it over, right? And you know what is interesting? It's, we talk about podcasts, right? And I love podcasts. And one of the interesting things, just to kind of give you a bit of an idea, I know podcasts are not going to go away. But
they might. I don't know. They might.
But here's one of those things. So, I was coming down this morning, down to your office, and what was interesting last night, I went on to Notebook LM, and I took some information about you.
Sure.
And I put in, so what Notebook LM is from Google, number one. It's free. That's awesome. And what you can do is you can give it information, and it will actually create a podcast for you. So this morning, as I was driving down, I was listening to this podcast talking about you and your company and stuff like that. It's just one of those things that, and the technology is free. And that's another big thing that we have to understand. This is not like back in around 1999 when I bought my first computer and for the internet. And what I had to do is, first of all, I had to spend $1,600 for the computer. I had to call the local internet company up. It took them 3 weeks to come out. I had to get a secondary phone line. And then what they did was they drilled holes in my wall and they put it through.
I know we got so many 20-year-olds saying, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, what's going on here? Like, that's insane.
Yes.
Like, no, he's just lying. Nobody had to do that. Okay.
And then basically over $2,000 later, I had access to the internet. The whole thing is with AI, it's literally on your phone, it's on your computer. And the whole thing is, if you think about this, you literally have an Einstein in your pocket for $20 a month on your phone, through OpenAI, for the ChatGPT. It's incredible access that we have. And in fact, I was taking a look at the access. I have ChatGPT 03 Pro, which is the paid version, right? And I was taking a look at ChatGPT 3.5, which was launched back in 2022. The freebie, right? Mm-hmm. That is the technology I'm using today is 280 times cheaper. Okay, because I do use tokens, and I'm not going to get into this, but I use it differently than a subscription, right? But my token cost is just dropping and dropping and dropping, right? So the accessibility and the cost is just incredible. And what that does, it exponentially accelerates it, not just in innovation, but the development of new companies, development of companies, and the adoption of this technology as well. Because I always like to tell people, it was when I first started speaking 2.5 years ago, and I would ask, is anybody using artificial intelligence? And it was always the two kids in the back, right, putting their hands up. Now, when I go to the crowds, the whole thing is I ask the crowd, how many are using AI on a daily basis? 80 to 90% of them are putting up their hands.
Sure, 80 or 90% of them are putting up their hands, but what they're really doing is they're using AI to ask a question that you could have asked Google.
Yeah.
Okay? Or to produce a newsletter or all those things that you say.
Yeah.
So what I'm really thinking about is actual complete job losses on a permanent basis.
Yep.
Okay. So we talked about the radiologist. So we'll move on to slightly larger professions.
Yeah.
So let's think about lawyers for a minute.
Yep.
So lawyers, they're going to be around. They won't. There's a group of them that won't just disappear because there's lawyers who their only job really is to go out and find clients, to be famous enough or wise enough or well known enough or specialized enough that when somebody runs into a problem, like when the grandson of a billionaire mows down a family drunk driving.
Yeah.
There's only one guy they think about because he's the most known criminal lawyer in a given state or province.
Yes.
Okay. And that's the kind of a job that's something AI is not doing tomorrow. Okay. Being that rainmaker, that person who brings in business. The other thing you need is someone who can stand in front of a judge. Because I think we both agreed the judges aren't going anywhere.
That is correct.
The stuff that's deeply, deeply ingrained in government. This is going to be the one time when regulators might actually save jobs.
Yeah, and what's interesting, and I want to jump in here, Ron, is that's why when you listen to the CEOs of these AI companies out there, they're basically, they talk about this dystopian world. They talk about the world of abundance with artificial intelligence. They know if they put fear out there on job losses, guess what? The regulators are going to...
Government fights back.
Yeah,
government fights back.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And it's only been about a month since the CEO of Anthropic came out and basically said there's going to be high unemployment rates. And he was one of the first ones that kind of, besides Jeffrey Hinton, who's the godfather of AI, basically...
But Hinton's not in AI now. He's on the periphery now.
He's teaching it.
He's teaching, right? Yeah.
And the whole thing is, at the end of the day, the CEO...
And he worries about it. Hinton worries about AI a lot.
Because the whole thing is that's the reason why he left Google, right? Because he was the head of AI, and he came back to Toronto. I think he heads up Vector Institute here. And both him and I, it was interesting, about a year and a half ago, both his company and my company, we supported an AI bill, an AI motion in the provincial government here. And it was one of those times where all three parties agreed within a couple of hours about passing this motion, right? Sure. And what was interesting about, and mentioning about Jeffrey Hinton, 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later after we did this, he received the Nobel Prize in physics because of his work in AI and for AI safety. And some of his best students, because he's a teacher, some of his best students are now AI leaders in safety, right? So it's a very interesting journey when you watch Jeffrey Hinton, what he's done. But safety is a huge thing.
Safety is a huge thing, but I think it's also fair to say that safety loses the bonus race. I mean, you're going to make the most money avoiding safety in AI. That's reality.
That's the thing in the United States right now. The whole thing is, when I talk to the politicians, both here in Canada, the United States, one of the big things they always say to me is that how can we regulate something when we don't know what it is or how to regulate it? The other thing is that the thought process, especially in the United States, is that if you highly regulate AI, which they've done in the EU.
Suppress it, and China leads. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And that's what they're concerned about, right? Because right now, there's basically three different levels of AI. There's narrow AI, there's AGI, which is generative, which is basically it's the intelligence of all the scientists and all the doctors. And then there's the super intelligence. And what super intelligence is something that's smarter than any human on Earth.
It's past us. It's way past us.
And what it is that when you take a look at the companies, AI companies around the world, they're all racing towards super intelligence. And the reason why they're doing that is because whoever reaches super intelligence first can control pretty much the world, because they can basically threaten to turn off the power to a country, take over the banking system.
Well, let's shut down these North Korean fuckers, okay? Let's do that. We're going to shut you down. You can decide what you can decide. But your nuke stopped working a few minutes ago. But you gotta let South Korea just walk in. Yeah, I get it.
And the thing is going back to the jobs thing is that we're not paying attention to that enough, because you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago about the Microsoft layoffs, right? The whole thing is, and
there's even more layoffs at Microsoft, right?
Yeah, because I did take a look at one report. It was around 15,000. Now, I cannot verify that if it was all AI related, but the 6,000 layoff of people there, they were basically saying it's as a result of AI. And the whole thing is that it's where you're going to see the layoffs first is definitely in the tech area. Now, have we seen it in the entertainment movie industry already? We have, right?
It's kind of wiped out a ton of human CGI operators, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the whole thing, when you're looking at it as a whole, it's like, you think about it. Why was the longest Screen Actors Guild and Writers Guild happened? It was
the strike.
The strike happened as a result of AI.
100%.
They saw that coming way before we did, right? Yeah. Because they've been so involved with CGI.
Well, they watched it happen in front of their eyes. Yeah.
And now you take a look at, Hollywood is struggling now because basically companies are moving over into AI, and because super faster, cheaper, right? And better quality at the end of the day.
So again, finish off our lawyer thought.
Yes.
Everybody between every lawyer or law clerk or paralegal between the rainmaker, the guy who can bring in clients or the gal who can bring in clients, and the whiz in front of a judge, the genius, the guy who can just pull it off in front of a judge or gal. Lots of gals doing that work. Like, as a matter of fact, the future of the new top criminal lawyer in Ontario is a woman named Heenan. Okay, she's the future, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the the old men who were the top criminal lawyers are starting to age out. But there'll always be, not always, but for the conceivable future, there's a place for somebody who can be a great courtroom performer.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
But literally everyone else in between is unnecessary. You were telling me about a proposal, a contract proposal.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So I was involved with an offer memorandum about 4 or 5 months ago, and they brought me down and they said, "Can you work with the lawyer and the 2 subject matter experts?" It was over $100 million project, and the whole thing was a government project that we're putting the offer in.
So that's like enormously more complicated.
Yeah, because it is very complex. The whole thing is that I sat down with the lawyer. The whole goal was, can AI do the system of basically the work of a lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. And so we basically sat down in the room, and then instead of taking it, say, 6 days to build out, it only took us 4 hours to build out. Now, it wasn't perfect. They still had to go through it, a couple of days for them to go through it. But doing the initial proposal only took 4 hours. But there's still humans.
That's 6 days versus 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And what you're going to see out there is that the cost of lawyers, the cost of medical treatments, let's say, for example, it's going to get cheaper because it's going to get way more efficient. It's going to get way quicker for diagnosing and treatment. And we're already seeing it out there, right? If tokenization has dropped by 280% or times in the last 2.5 years, you can imagine. And remember, the worst part of this technology is today. It's only going to get exponentially better the next day. All
right, swing over to what we talked about before, the accountants, the business analysts. Anybody who spends a lot of time, like you said, looking in front of a computer, mainly looking at a spreadsheet.
Yes.
So if we think about the main use of every senior accounting firms, the main use is interaction with CRA to file file complex or business tax returns. Mm-hmm. That's their whole world. That's why they exist. Okay. Again, there's going to be a rainmaker. There's going to be somebody who attracts clients to the firm. Okay. But is the idea that if you've got a tax code on one side, which you've now downloaded into AI. AI's got every single possible permutation. AI's also got every court decision of the entire tax court for the history of the country.
Yes.
Got all that on one side. And we got the spreadsheet that the clients produced on the other side. Mm-hmm. When you put those two together, why do you need an accountant?
Well, that's the thing, right? And the whole thing is that the one thing I can argue about that is that we still need a human to check it over just in case, because at the end of the day, it still hallucinates now.
Okay, sure. But that's, we're talking about a firm that might have 25 people in it.
Yes.
Maybe you need 4.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the whole thing is that
you need fact checkers. You need
and that's what we talk about AI jobs of the future. Basically, fact checking, just checking the output before it goes to the other side.
But aren't those fact checkers just survived employees? They just the employees who survived from the shrinkage of the firm. Yes. Okay, like that. Hey, what's the new jobs AI is going to create? Oh, just a handful of the ones that go. We'll keep a handful and let the rest go, and they're the checkers we need. That's all. So, all right. So finance we've talked about, and voice. Yes. Like voice has made such strides, right? It's just made massive strides.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was watching this video the other day where basically we know we've all had frustrations when we call Rogers or Bell for customer service, right?
No, they're not frustrations. I hate the fuckers.
I knew you were going to say.
I fucking hate the fuckers, okay? The only people, there's 2 groups of people who surpass Rogers and Bell for shit customer service would be CRA, which is not actually even the worst on earth. Yeah. Like when you get, but they're horrible. Like they're just mind-bendingly bad. Yeah. But and there's 60,000 of them. So, so now here's the wild one. They're gonna have big cuts at CRA. Particularly in that department that talks to taxpayers. So, of course, there's going to be now an excuse for worse service. Yeah. Like the service was off the charts awful, like the worst of the worst. And now that they're going to cut some people, you can imagine the first thing you're going to hear. They're going to put that even on the recording. Yeah. Due to government cuts, we can't deliver the kind of service we could. Yeah. Instead of waiting 4 hours, you're going to wait 2 days. Okay. Yeah. Please arrange to have someone stay on the phone. So, like, that's crazy. But we can see how voice AI can replace that madness.
Yeah, and I've taken a look at a number of studies out there with customer service with voice. One of the studies, and it was a really in-depth study, that the performance and the result time was 76 times better than a human.
Sorry, not 76% better.
Yeah.
A multiple of
Exactly.
76 times.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Because what it's going to do is it's going to get straight to the point, right? So, but what this is interesting. So one of the videos I was watching the other day, it basically, the person tasks an AI agent, which is basically their assistant,
Sure.
to call the telephone company. And guess who picked up on the other end? Another AI assistant. And what ends up happening is that the human's isn't in the loop.
There's no human in the equation now.
And
Okay.
the whole thing is that what I can only see this in probably in the next year to 2 years. When you call Bell's going to ask you, would you like to stay on the phone for 26 minutes till we get to a human, or just press 0 to get to an AI assistant right away? Right?
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen, right?
But I'm going to check that for a second, because I'm not sure it's going to happen that way. Like, I think it's going to be, we're going to put you through to an AI assistant. If you want a human, it's 2 days. Like,
Yeah.
they're going to make it so that they can close their call centers.
Exactly.
And by the way, there's this crazy idea that some people have. We've had the comments on the show when we've talked about this before. There's a crazy idea that all call centers have moved offshore. It's true for some things. Like if you want to try to reconnect your Sonos sound system on your screens. Okay, if Sonos is acting up. Yeah. When you call, you're speaking to someone in the Philippines or someone in Malaysia or something. But that's not true of finance. In finance, by law, the humans must be here.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to export customer data
Exactly.
offshore. And I think that's true for the United States as well. Like for finance, all kinds, everything to do with finance, insurance, real estate, private information, you can't push it offshore.
Yeah.
So there are a ton of call center workers in Canada.
Correct.
Who are all going to lose their jobs in 18 months. That's reality, right? I mean, except for those 3 people who are left for someone who's willing to someone who's willing when you call you call Bell and they say, okay, you have your choice of an AI assistant who's extremely good. Yeah, and you know what? They will be. They will be very good.
Oh, they already good.
They already are very good. Or we could have someone call you back in 3 days. The choice is yours. A human can call in 3 days, or you can speak to the AI assistant right now. So we can assume that somebody in their 90s is going to want to wait for the 90 years of age is going to want to wait for the human. But I would see even an old bastard like me is going to say, no, let me talk to the AI guy. At least I can talk to somebody. Okay. And those jobs are going to cease to exist. I mean, I always believe that when you talk about 90% plus job reduction, just call it all. Because statistically, that's about it. Okay. So that's something that we can accept that will probably happen. Okay. Yeah. And not in a couple of years, like before the end of 18 months.
Yeah, the big thing is the timing, right? Because what's really important, let's talk about the tractor, right? When the tractor was first started to be industrialized, being put through the Ford factories back in 1910, by about 1950, over 80% of the farm workers had left the farm. But that was 40 years. Now, the whole thing with that is that it took 40 years for society to change, right? But what happened to the farmhand, he left the farm, went into town.
Worked at a factory.
To build the tractor, right? With this technology, it's exponentially growing fast. It's exponentially being adopted quicker. It's cheaper. It's getting easier and easier to use. And what's going to happen is that it does cost money for big companies, even small companies, to put the proper technology in. So the whole thing
development side.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's going to be some limitations to certain companies because of the capital of investing into AI. Now, the whole thing is that why are we seeing tech layoffs first? Because number one, they have the money. Number two, they understand the technology. But that's going to be a cascading effect, right? As we go through this, right? But the other thing we were talking about this before about doctors, and I always like to take a look at the positive as well with this. As you were saying that doctors are required to see 12 patients a day.
That in Canada, the expectation of running a family practice, being a general practitioner, is that on the days you work, you don't have to work every day, but on the days you work a full day, because it's a little bit complicated. Like the way a general practitioner works in most provinces is you take on a bundle of people.
Yeah.
And you receive a payment just based on the bundle.
Yeah.
And then there's a relationship to how, if you have to do extra things with these people, like if somebody's a diabetic, you have to see them a lot more on and on, or high blood pressure patient, you have to see them a lot more till you get their blood pressure under control. But at the end of the day, the general expectation is you'd see 12 patients in a day. Okay.
Yeah. And so what's going to happen is, because the doctor is a lot of times bogged down because of the paperwork, the whole thing is that's going to be exponentially sped up. So instead of seeing 12 patients a day, they're going to be seeing 18 or 20 patients a day. And also the diagnosing using AI is going to increase as well. Like the speed
and possibly accuracy as well.
You know, it was interesting. I was talking to a group down in the United States last year, and I was saying to them, you know, imagine this. And this is probably what's going to happen, is that within the next 5 years, we're going to see doctors being sued because they didn't use AI in the treatment, right?
Sure.
Yeah, or the diagnosis, right?
Sure.
And we're going to start to see that because of the incredible accuracy.
I think that's sooner than 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. But remember, that was a year ago when I said that, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And what's also interesting, Microsoft has a new medical diagnosing AI system out there. And the early reports that what I've seen from it is that when you compare it to doctors on diagnosing, the same diagnosing was around 20% that the doctors got it right. The same situation with the Microsoft AI system was at 86% accuracy.
Oh boy.
Right?
Okay. All right. So swinging back to jobs again, we can see that there's clear categories of people and clear categories of businesses that let's face it, it's going to be a little bit, because we don't want to talk about robotics today.
No.
It's going to be a little bit less impactful on construction trades.
Correct.
It's going to be a little bit for now.
Yeah.
But what we are thinking about is that it will have an effect on employment of certain white-collar jobs.
Yes.
Of people who are essentially people who spend their days looking at screens.
Yep. People
who spend their days manipulating data. People who, in other words, turning it into a business analysis.
Yeah.
People who are, I think about it in our own business, that there is a job to do with taking the commitment from the lender, taking the mortgage commitment from the lender, and adding on a ton of ancillary documents, all kinds of disclosure about interest rates, all kinds of permissions about privacy, all kinds of discussion of what level of information you require, how sophisticated you are in terms of buying homes or understanding mortgages. There's just a ton of ancillary documents besides what the bank issues. There's amortization schedules. There's just so much that has to be created. And this takes a human to do.
Yeah.
There's forms that you fill in, okay?
Yeah.
And sometimes your CRM can push a lot of the data, or your application system can push a lot of the data to the forms, but you have to check the forms.
Yeah.
And some of the forms are unique to the brokerage because they feel they want to have their own kind of form to describe certain privacy issues, certain is it suitable? Is the mortgage suitable to you? Okay. So, but that would just be almost instantaneous.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, it was yesterday I was working.
And not done by a human necessarily. Maybe a human checker. That's all.
Yeah. And what's interesting, yesterday I was working with one brokerage. Well, one of the biggest challenges out there, or issues with realtors, is that they don't put the proper information on their MLS listings that goes out onto realtor.ca.
And are really bad mistakes a lawsuit.
100%, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things is, one of the brokers reached out to me and says, hey, can AI check this before it goes live? I said 100%. But I said the whole thing is that you have to be careful, because I said you can upload the client full view, you can't upload the broker full view, or you're breaking Privacy Act, right? And RICO rules. Okay, yeah. But what we did was, which is fine, right? So what we were able to do was basically create an MLS checker, and all we did was we went over to the Toronto Real Estate Board's policies and procedures on MLS. We just literally took that policies PNP and uploaded it into a private GPT system, which is basically an AI system, and said, learn this. And it learned it in a couple seconds, and then says, what I want you to do is, when we upload an MLS on the client full view of an MLS listing, I want to make sure that this listing is compliant to the rules of the Toronto Real Estate Board for MLS. And boom, we built it out. Now, it does still need some training because it does make mistakes.
Needs a little bit of checking.
Yeah. And all we do is go back into the instructions and say, okay, you got this wrong. Don't do it again. right? And it's like an assistant.
And it never does it again.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
And imagine this. How much does that cost us? It just costs us a subscription to GPT, right? That's insane when you think about it. And that's just one. Here's another example. If you want to build out your policies and procedures or you want to house your policies and procedures in an AI system. So say, for example, an employee it's Saturday night and wants to take a vacation and they want to understand the rules about taking vacation within that company, they can go into that AI agent or that GPT system and ask the questions.
And ask as many questions as they want and ask for further refined information if they want.
24/7.
Let's talk about something. One thing we had an interesting experience talking about before the show is we dreamt up in about, 4 minutes, the death of an entire profession. Now, it's a small profession.
Yeah.
Okay. We thought about appraisals.
Yes.
For a minute, like the professional appraiser who produces a valuation on a property, which is in every bank. There is some electronic appraisal now for sure.
Yeah.
But often a bank does want an appraisal done. Okay. There's limitations to how much they trust electronic appraisals.
Yeah.
So if we take that appraiser, what that person is someone who diligently compares comparable sales, which is all just data that's available.
Yeah.
Breaks it down by the similar floor plan, similar age of the property, does some adjustments. The adjustments are all completely codified, by the way. They're not just the guys, not magical. The guy doesn't dream them up. They're like part of the system. And then they geo warehouse location. They do a bunch of useful stuff. Then the question became, well, what about the physical inspection of the house? So, the physical inspection of the house could easily be a car pulls up to a home that needs inspection. A man gets out and says, do I have permission to come in and permission to take photos? And the homeowner says yes. He pulls a drone out of a box. The drone does all of the yard pictures immediately. Goes into the house. There's a closed door. They have to get in it. That needs some cooperation. But if we take that data function of analyzing previous sales in the neighborhood, combine it with the drone pictures, I think we just eliminated appraisers, didn't we?
Pretty much. But obviously, I'm not an expert at appraisals and what they do.
I've only seen about 30,000 of them. Okay. So I've been doing this a long time. So I'm thinking the essence of it. Now, if I love a bunch of appraisers saying, no, you're wrong. I'll tell you why. We're so fucking important and nobody else but us can do this. But I'm pretty goddamn sure an appraisal is a physical inspection of the property combined with a detailed analysis of comps and checking all of the different, all available data, all public record, like sales, geo warehouse location, pictures of the neighborhood, all kinds of heat maps of what goes on in the neighborhood, good and bad, and then finally spits out a report with a value. Like, I don't think there's much more than that. Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the concerns, right? There's a lot of jobs out there that even physical, not sitting in front of a computer all day, can be threatened as well. Right.
Sure.
And
I'm just not sure the bricklayer is going to be in trouble soon.
No.
Maybe someday, but not soon. Okay.
It's interesting about robotics and how fast robotics is going.
Yeah, that's another day. That's another day. Okay. So what we've talked about is that we've identified many occupations that could experience dramatic pressure. And to your point, why dramatic pressure? Because of the rapid improvement of the tech itself.
Yes.
And more to the point, the incredible low cost base.
Exactly.
So when you look at replacing a job that you're paying somebody $75,000 a year with, you don't actually mind an initial outlay of $30,000 or $40,000 for customization.
Yeah.
As long as it'll run on about $1,500 a year for the next 5 years.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, that is the simplest employment calculation you could ever make in the world. Okay. So we know this is coming. We know it's coming. You made a great point earlier that the only thing that might stand in its way is government saying we need to slow it down.
Correct.
Because we're afraid of the result.
Yeah. And we had Bill C-27, which died during the elections or before the elections, and which had some regulation for AIDA, is what it's called. And the whole thing is that I have not seen it from the Canadian government. Right now, AI regulation in Canada is very fragmented, right? It's not, it's still not there yet. And I don't know, we were saying this before, unfortunately, something big is going to happen in the world, in regards to AI, and it's going to wake up the regulators and they're going to step in, right? And the other challenge that when we take a comparison to the European Union compared to the United States or Canada, the EU has an AI Act, and it's pretty tough. It's really tough. And one of the big things is that it is hampering them in their kind of innovation with AI. And the whole thing is that because the United States is basically just kind of, there is regulations down in the United States.
But still, very, very much a free enterprise-oriented society.
At the state level, it's being done at, but the whole thing is it's going
the
wild.
blue states. The blue states. You just move your operation to Texas, you're fine. Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is that, and you pointed this out, a lot of us are using AI as if it's Google. And the whole thing is that what's interesting to watch people out there is because when you go into ChatGPT or some other AI system, it looks and feels like Google.
Yeah.
It's psychologically, we treat it like Google. And the whole thing is we have to start to reframe our mind when we're using AI to go beyond an email response, go beyond a property description, because that's how most of us are using it.
Yeah,
right?
we need to use, as you said earlier, we need to use AI as an agent, as somebody who's going to do a whole bunch of work as opposed to just answering a question.
Exactly. So you're probably, I know you were surprised about this. So for me preparing for this podcast, so I know of you, but I don't know you yourself, right?
You haven't watched every podcast.
No, I haven't watched every podcast. So
there's a ton of people who are not watching every podcast. So I got to speak to that a little bit. Hey, tell your buddy to hit subscribe for Christ's sake. Okay.
I was waiting for that. So the whole thing is that I was able to basically go over to Gemini. So what's Gemini? Gemini is an artificial intelligence system that's developed by Google. Who does Google also own?
Owns YouTube. Yeah, right.
Those 4 billion videos that are out there. And so what it's
the most profitable entertainment company on earth is YouTube.
Wow. Yeah. Didn't know that.
Yeah, it is.
I can see why, right?
Yeah. So because everybody else is supplying the content, you're only paying them pennies and you're picking up all the advertising money, right?
It's just a side note to that.
When you don't have to make the content, you're way ahead. Okay.
Yeah. But I think YouTube came out last week or said if it's faceless or it's done by AI, you're going to get devalued.
No, right? For sure. Yeah, that's a fact. Yes, you're right.
So what was interesting in the respects to the use of this technology is that when I took your YouTube channel, I just basically copied and pasted the URL of the YouTube channel of the Angry Mortgage Guy.
And it watched it all.
And it psychologically profiled you.
Sure.
So it gave me kind of an essence, an idea of when I was coming down here. Then I took it a little bit even further and I said, can you create 40 questions for me? And on how or what Ron is going to ask me, what's his angle of asking you this question? And O'Neill, how should you respond to it with Ron? It was actually coaching me on how to do it, right? And I went on further and further with it. It must have produced probably about 50, 60
you were kind enough to share some of it with me, and the actual profile itself, so the thing about that you realize about these high-end professional versions of whether it's Gemini, you're paying the $300 a month, or it's ChatGPT, you're paying the $300 a month. They're putting out a product that would rival. I know all the listeners and the viewers aren't going to know these companies, but McKinsey or Bain, like they are putting out an executive summary that you would pay a consultant. Not millions, but you'd pay a consultant like 20 grand for.
Yes.
Okay, and it's just punching it out. And it's reasonably accurate. And the language it uses, it uses master's degree business English.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not using PhD because that becomes all a bunch of almost impossible to understand shit. But it's absolutely using master's degree English and producing this output.
Yeah.
So in other words, when you looked at it, you would say, sweet Jesus, the guy who's writing this must have really been top of his class. I mean, it's really brilliantly worded and complex enough and cutting edge enough for you to think, oh my God, I mean, this is a really smart person. It's AI, for God's sakes. Okay, it's just AI.
And you know what's a point about that is that I get it 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, when you go in and get an AI output, like whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a response to something, I get it. You could tell it was robotic. Today, you can't. right? But you can also change the tonality of it.
I gotta interject 1 second.
Yeah.
Though. Like, I am a writer.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm a professional. Essentially, I'm a professional writer.
Okay.
So that's if you have like 160,000 postings on X that are all like not just one page. They're like 5 or 6 page postings.
Yeah.
So if you're a professional writer, you can tell something's going on.
But most of us can't.
Oh no, 90% of and here's what I will say.
Yeah.
In a year, I won't be able to tell. 100% true. In a year, I will not be able to tell whether it's AI or a human that's produced it. 100%.
Yeah. And it's in what
or 6 months.
Yeah, even less, right?
Yeah.
The way it's going, because ChatGPT 5, by the time this podcast gets out, it might be released. And I just also want to mention about hallucinations, because I know a lot of people talk about that, and that's why we review, edit, and humanize every single output. Don't let AI just send it out, because that's dangerous. I've seen scientists, lawyers have done this. They don't check the output. But the whole thing is that the hallucination rate is getting lower and lower, right? Because I always look at it this way. When I was using AI 5 years ago, it hallucinated all the time. Now, my 9-year-old nephew hallucinates more than AI. Right? So that's a simple reality too of how far it's gone, right? But we all have, this is one of the dangerous parts about this technology is that we're going to be over reliant on this technology, and we're just going to put it out there. And what was interesting? A year and a half ago, 2 lawyers from Western New York was defending their client in the court case, and they went over to ChatGPT at the time, and they got 5 or 6 case laws to defend their client, which ChatGPT produced. They didn't check it. They went into the courtroom, presented to the judge. The judge went into her chambers. She came back out and says, "Where the hell did you get these?" And
so the citations were fake.
They were fake because it made it up, right? Yeah. The whole thing is that at the end of the day, now, one of the great things about the outputs now, it'll actually tag in where the citation came from, so you can go back and check and see
quickly.
Which is really good, which is really nice. Now, I was working on an AI system last week from Stanford in the United States, and that accuracy they were touting was 99% accuracy. So you can see it's just getting better and better. Just to come, because I want to be respectful of your time. So if we think about one element that is kind of interesting to me, is that if you're graduating with a bachelor's degree today, probably your last 18 months of output to be graded was created by AI, right? Yeah, and this is... Although the universities are trying to catch up. They have software to detect it. But it's not a perfect... No, it isn't. Because what the students are doing a lot of times is that they're not using ChatGPT, right? They're using other AI systems. Then they're reviewing it, editing, and humanizing it, right? Which then defers the checker. Now, the whole thing is that I know students that are being accused of using AI when they didn't legitimately, right? Okay. So there's a bit of a challenge with a lot of the school systems out there. But what my concern also is that the highest adopters of AI systems are university and college kids, right? Sure. So what's literally happening is we are having what I call the ChatGPT graduates. They're coming out of school without any critical thinking and because a lot of other skills. Their only skill level is Chat, Gemini, and Grok. Exactly. Okay? Yeah. They have not actually read any of the background. They have not composed any of it themselves. They've edited it. They've tried to tweak some words so it doesn't look exactly the same. But they're becoming engineers of the tweak. They're not forming their own hypothesis and creating their own decision tree. They're not doing any of those things. Exactly. And that's the danger of it. And right now, that's why I'm in communication with the education minister to discuss this, because there's going to be a huge, massive skill sets that are not going to be there when they come out of school, right? And then second of all, job displacement or the silent unhiring of these students. And the unhiring is, if to get back to the original point, if you're graduating with a degree to go into accounting, there's no friggin' job. Exactly. That's the reality. Yeah. And when we have to talk about one of your posts a couple of weeks ago about at the end of the day, when we start to see these mass layoffs, which we've already started to see in Silicon Valley with Microsoft, when you have 6,000 people laid off, the whole thing is that trickles down to mortgage stress. No, that's what I think about it. Yeah, that's what I think about it every day. It's who's going to be able to get a mortgage.
If jobs become so precarious, how can you get a mortgage? Will you just be in between jobs too often?
Yeah.
Will you be retraining? And nobody
Yeah.
wants to give you a mortgage if you're just retraining, even if the government's sponsoring it. And at the end of the day, how will that change your approach? I mean, where are the jobs of the future?
Yeah.
We've got a tremendous problem with young people being forced to live with parents.
Yes. Yeah.
For way too long, or rent and never be able to buy a home. There's other reasons behind that in Ontario and British Columbia, but this just exacerbates that problem. And if I'm a chief risk officer, not knowing where the layoffs are going to be, because I've always felt that, hey, if these guys are working at the bank, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But once you realize maybe the entire work of business analysts, the people who prepare decks, the people who do presentations, prepare presentations, the people who do that, the people who review documents for mortgage underwriting or any kind of loan underwriting. A lot of it's automated now. Like the simple stuff like car loans is almost fully automated, but credit card adjudication is fully automated.
Yeah.
But the remaining stuff, when people look at documents, it's going to be automated.
Yep.
So if I'm a chief risk officer saying, I used to think these sort of jobs were sure thing.
Yeah.
Actually, the banking jobs are probably going to have a 30% attrition rate.
In finance, yeah.
And I just need to give mortgages to cops and firefighters. That's it. So because this may be the first time that hated government regulation preserves mortgage brokers, realtors. You guys got a great association. You got an association that fights off all change effectively. Okay, really well. All right. It can't cure fewer sales, but it can sure fight off other methods of selling houses. Okay, and with also true of all kinds of investment guys. The investment guys have got a real fence built around their business. Okay, and so those are going to be some occupations that survive longer than others. Not to say they're eternal. They're not.
No.
Okay. But this will be one of the only times that people will say, oh my God, thank God I need a license to do this job.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's interesting. There is some big moats around certain industries, and it's going to take time. Like the whole thing is that we're not going to see massive layoffs like instantaneously. That's not going to happen. You're going to see it.
Some occupations we are.
Oh, it will. And if they have the capital and they can bring it in very quickly and implement it. But it's interesting. The World Economic Forum came out in January over in Davos, and they talked about this, that 91 million jobs will either be displaced or augmented by 2030. I think it's a lot higher than that. But this is the important thing to understand, is that 59% of the population of work in the workforce needs upskilling with AI. And that's one of the big things, because I'm one of the very few AI trainers out there in real estate. And I'm shocked that there's not more out there, right? Yeah, I get it. There's a lot of, coaches out there that have their podcasts that talk about it and bring on specialists. But at the end of the day, we need more AI trainers out there to upskill. And the whole thing is, this is not like learning a big, massive new technology. It's just learning how to talk to it, to get and reframe your mind on the capacity of what it can do. Like every day, like yesterday, when I was thinking, well, how can I figure out Ron Butler, right? And I'm like,
I'm sure it was a huge fucking disappointment in the end, right?
Well, it needs therapy now.
It's like there's some mental health issues we got to deal with. Was the end conclusion?
I had to build another AI for that.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, Ron, I gotta say, this has been fascinating. Sometimes I don't know how the listeners of yours react.
Yeah.
But I know this is fascinating. I know this really is the future, because I had that experience of watching voice go from bullshit to perfect in 6 months.
Exactly.
And it still rocks me to this day. So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
And even if some of the audience maybe thinks it's just bullshit and no, I think my job is safe, I want you to just open your mind to the possibility that it may not be safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Thanks,
Ron.
Thanks.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.